Okay, so I'd like to try to talk a little bit about the materials and processes for this latest piece. Um, First of all, I call these things paintings. There's some other ones back there and over on the wall. I call these things that I make paintings, although technically, I guess if you went to art school, which I didn't, they would be called mixed media because they have all kinds of things in them. But I like being able to call something by one word. Mixed media, to be honest, sounds a little bit artsy and a little pretentious to me, although for years I have used that term. But now I hope to kind of weed it out. And I also use the collage process, but as far as I'm concerned, anybody who calls himself a collage artist needs to be living in a garret on the sixth story in some walk-up in Paris. No, please, I just mean that as a joke. I think collage is a really beautiful art form, and it's kind of a technique that I do use, but it's just simpler to boil it all down to calling it a painting, okay? So, secondly, somebody might ask, well, how do you choose your palette for these things? That's another sort of art school consideration. And there's not a lot of choice involved. I guess, well, on some level, I guess there is. But basically, I go to the hardware store, and I go down the aisle, and I look around, and I say, well, I need some yellow, or I need some whatever. What's this? I got this Speedwall on sale for $4. How about that? $4 for a gallon of paint. And so it's that kind of a thing. It's very casual. There's nothing calculating about it. Once in a while I buy these little things at the craft store, and they're pretty cool because they come in all kinds of wild colors. I can't profess to be any kind of a colorist at all. I know nothing about color theory, and in fact I'm kind of color blind. That's why I never printed in color when I was a photographer. I tried, but I'd bring a print up from the darkroom and I'd say to my wife, how does this look? And she'd say, can't you see the blue cast in that? And I'm like, no, I had no idea. So I was a black and white printer, and I like that better anyway, because with this I can do all the colors I want and don't really have to think about it too hard. And then so being a little colorblind, I don't know, you can blame me for not being good at combining colors or whatnot, but I just kind of go with what I think looks good, and I can see contrast. So when I'm working on a part, and like for example, this middle part here, the state of Illinois, I felt like it needed to have some light border around it to set it off, provide some contrast that way. And so that's what I did. It took me a while to lighten that up. Okay, and I'll just go around and talk a little bit about some of the materials. These tornadoes, the middle part, the swirly part, is a combination of just pencil, number 2 pencil, and Sharpie marker. And the outside of it is paint squeezed right out of the tube. I like that color, some kind of crimson or something. And on top of each of them I had these eyes originally, but that was just like, it was overkill. Why do you need 7 or 8 eyes staring at you out of a painting like that? So I wanted to lighten it up a little bit in one way, and I got these flowers. Those were from the side of a cat scratching post thing that I got from my cat, and they had these little cats on it. I think maybe you can see here, there's the ears of one of those cats. And then I didn't want to have 7 cats' faces smiling out of me out of a painting. So I had this container of coins that somehow I collected over the years. I've never been to most of these countries. I honestly don't know how they really ended up in the barn. But I've used coins on a few other pieces, so I glued some of those on with Gorilla Glue, and they're holding up real well. I kind of like that way. And then I put a key on down here. I have a whole jar of old keys that come in handy once in a while. While I'm down here, these dominoes were a set of stamps printed by Diana Hale, my friend and collaborator on another project, and she does all kinds of creative things with stamp making. So I was lucky enough to get a set of those. And these images of Mary Todd Lincoln and Abe were from postcards. I think I mentioned in the short that this whole thing started. I went out to Illinois in the month of September, and while there, or actually before I went, I picked up one of those AAA road maps of Illinois, and I never really used it. But then when I got home, it was laying around in the studio, and I thought, well, I should do something with this. And I unfolded it, and it turned out that the image part, the actual map of Illinois, was just the right size for this canvas of 30 by 40. So I tore away all the other states. Over here you got your Missouri, and what the hell's down there? I forget. That's still Missouri. Over there's Kentucky, Indiana, up there Chicago and Lake Erie. So I tore all that away, and it just fit inside that frame. So that was the very beginning of this. What happened next? Well, I put it in those terms of what happened because that's the way things seem to unfold when I'm working on a piece. Something just happens in the studio and I go on to sort of a new phase. And so what happened in that case was I have all these ways of writing, all these markers, pencils, roller pens, Sharpies and stuff. And it just seems to be a habit of mine. I start to write on the pieces. And if you had seen this in that stage over the map, it was just a lot of handwriting, some of which can still be seen here. What does this say? Help me a lot, so much to be alone. I really don't, something or other. I don't know what the hell I was saying. I was writing about my experiences out in Illinois. And if you scraped away a bunch of this stuff, there's quite a bit there. I don't know what that says. I could probably decipher it if I spent some time on it. But anyway, that's the next phase. And I end up doing that for some reason on a lot of pieces and then covering it over. A lot of that is just to sort of provide a foundation and give me paths to scribble and paint and mark it up beyond that. So I did a bunch of those statements, written statements. So it's sort of good to vent that stuff too, to just get it out. Sort of like keeping a diary. And then I start to paint over things, but in pretty much of a willy-nilly fashion. None of the pictures went on yet or anything like that. And so I started to paint and fill in and got the shape of Illinois delineated. Well, there's a word I kind of don't like. Again, another too fancy word, delineate. But anyway, got the state outline. I didn't have that silver marker on there yet. I just put the red and blue on there, which I just took out of the tube and out of the can with a towel and just smeared it around. Then I think I started to draw on the tornadoes with pencil and marker and sprouted those up around the state. Yeah, that's what happened next. So I guess I would call that more or less the foundation of the piece. I don't want to go on too long here. I guess this is getting lengthy. But just to sort of cut to the chase here, around the border, these yellow pieces were left over from something else. I had this. I have these containers. Okay, I have a lot of these over on the shelves and even some upstairs. And some of them have just pieces of scrap painting on paper that I do sometimes in here. I just lay paper down and put paints over it and mix things up and let it dry, and then I tear it up and use that stuff later. So that yellow stuff all came from a pile of that. The snapshots I actually bought all together one day at this really interesting store in Urbana, Illinois. It was kind of a used stuff store. They had everything in there from used electronics to thousands of photographs and postcards. Really fascinating place. And I got all these photos for like $2. and just wonderful. I often wonder, this little individual, I wonder what she's doing today. I think she's cute. So those were one of the last things to go on, and I put them at the base of the tornadoes. And then finally, I filled in a lot with more scribbling, a lot of people would call it. Okay, that's fine, I can take that. So I put a lot of that on at the end to fill in. And then last night, these drones showed up. That's what I mean by when I say things happen. Things show up. Here's some crows, a lot of crows out in Illinois. And there's an ICBM coming in from parts unknown. Here's some Native Americans. And yeah, these drones showed up. I think there's another one here somewhere. Oh, yeah, there he is. Yeah, so it gave me an idea. My next painting, I'm already starting it, is about drones. And then we needed some filler in here just as a spatial kind of a thing. And I don't know why, but I remember back when I was a kid, I must have been like 6 or 7 years old, and I asked my dad to draw something, to see if he could draw. I was just curious. And I remember he drew a guy that looked just like this. He just had a piece of paper. I never saw my dad do any kind of artwork. Sorry for that glare, but you get the idea. Nobody in my family was an artist except my Uncle Joe, which I'll talk about in the future. But my dad drew this guy smoking a cigarette that looked pretty much like that. And it just came back to me. I hadn't thought of that, well, probably in maybe 60 years. Okay, I'm 69, and I was probably 5 or 6 years old. So it's interesting how all of this stirs up memories, stirs up feelings, and the finished product isn't so important to me as the experiences that I have when I'm making it. But in the end, I kind of like the way this looks, and I took my silver paint markers and used a ruler and outlined the state a little bit more to set it off. And there you go. I guess that's enough about that one for today. Thanks for watching, and on to the next painting. Peace out.